1 year ago, this truck and I became extremely intimate. Today I'm going to give you an update on how it's running, all the parts I've had to fix in the last 7 years of ownership, and whether or not buying an older Dodge Ram is economically viable for you. This is my 2010 Dodge Ram Laramie Crew Cab, Hemi 5.7. Before I begin with all the pros and cons, let's have a quick tour and see what sort of condition you can expect from a nearly 12-year-old truck. This is the 4th generation Dodge Ram, which was introduced in 2009 with a huge facelift. Front end became completely plastic other than the chrome bumper, which was available in some trim levels like mine. Even the chrome grille is made of plastic, but this helps deflect road grit and prevent stone chips or cracked headlights. The headlights are holding up well. There are some insect corpses lying around, but overall they've not clouded over or turned yellow. The metal chrome bumper has collected a couple of minor dents over the years from objects hiding in the snow, and there's a tiny spot of rust starting to show along the bottom edge. The front fenders and doors should be in decent shape, especially if you have side steps installed. Less likely to be hit by a car door in Walmart. The rear bed, well, that's another story. It's kind of like the back alley of a restaurant, where the garbage is thrown and the drunks like to use as their personal washroom. Even with limited use, I still managed to collect my fair share of scrapes and dings, and of course a couple of dents on the bumper. The passenger side is just like the driver's side, with virtually no damage. However, I am concerned with what lies beneath all that silver plastic trim. The chrome side steps are still in great condition, the only faded area is the radio antenna. I do have 2 areas of concern, and that would be the rocker panels or sills. As you can see, I have obvious signs of corrosion down there, and if I don't take care of it soon, it will only get worse. In fact, I may already be too late. It's the same story on the other side. The side steps and brackets can easily be removed and painted black, but the bodywork requires a bit more work and a skill I do not yet possess. The wheels are 20-inch steelies with a glued-on chrome cover, horrible design to keep clean. The side mirrors are also plastic chrome. They have entry lights and side repeaters built in, but the auto tint glass has now started to discolour and fail. Unfortunately, these are very expensive to replace. Let's move to the inside, see what you might expect from a reasonably well cared for 12-year-old Ram. Let's start with the most abused area of any truck, for obvious reasons, the driver's side. The door jambs and upper rocker panels are surprisingly clean and rust-free, considering no one ever washes that area. The door panels are still firmly attached to the doors, but then again, I've never had occasion to remove them. All the window and door lock switches work perfectly. This textured plastic is hard wearing, but kinda hard to clean. Moving on to the inside, the most obvious sign of wear in any vehicle is the driver's seat. Over time, the leather dries out, gets brittle and cracks. I had this repaired a couple of years ago, but the leather is just too far gone. Until I can afford new seats, duct tape will do the trick. The rest of the interior is in excellent condition. I only clean this a couple of times a year, but it always scrubs up well. Maybe I should do it 4 times a year. The steering wheel is worn, but not torn or falling apart. All the buttons and switches work as they should. The gauges still look nice, but are obviously lacking all the new tech you'll find on new cars and trucks. The stereo system is the biggest ager of this truck. The touchscreen stopped working 2 years ago, but I can still plug in my iPhone and use the steering wheel controls. The heater controls work perfectly, blows hot in winter, cold in summer. Heated and cooled seats and heated steering wheel have never failed me. These trucks did come with a bench seat option. I preferred the centre gear stick and giant storage box option. The pad on the top is losing its cushioning a bit, but overall it's in great condition. The latch still works and the hinges don't flop about like a half-dead fish. The rear passenger compartment is also in great condition. The split rear seats fold up easily to allow more space for shopping or pets or car parts, and all the storage area lids work as they should. It also has removable ice boxes in the floor, which I never use. Under the passenger side seat is where your base unit lives. The biggest advantage of choosing a crew cab is all this extra leg room. The driver's seat is at my normal operating position, and as you can see, even a taller driver could slide the seat back another foot. The headliner is in excellent condition, but this truck has never been smoked in. The sunroof still works perfectly, but to be honest, I'm not a fan of getting my head roasted. Overall, this is still a very nice place to be. Of course it doesn't have all the fancy tech and gadgets of a new truck, but hey, that's just more stuff to break. Well, that's just cosmetics. How does it run and drive? That's the main thing. If you got a Laramie edition, you would have had the key with the remote start. Press that button twice and it should start. Extremely handy feature, especially if you live in Canada in winter. You can start it from your bed, let it warm up the seats, let it demist the windows. All the snow will be gone. Maybe. So how should it drive? Let's find out. If your Ram's been taken care of for the last 12 years, then it should drive pretty much perfect, or at least perfect for a 12-year-old car. Steering should be nice, it shouldn't be pulling left or right. Brakes should be good. And of course, when you put your foot in the gas, it should actually do something. Which mine still does, which I'm very happy with. Although, I never actually put the foot down in this truck. There's no point, it's kind of a cop magnet. But at least you know the power's there if you need it. And obviously, you need that power for when you're all loaded up with stuff in the back. And let's face it, most of us are never loaded up with stuff in the back. We buy these trucks for the occasional trip to Home Depot. Or for me, car parts. But it's nice to have that option. Suspension wise, it should be, well, I would say firm but spongy. It's hard to describe in a truck. If you don't have weight in the back, it's a bit more bouncy. Once you get weight, it settles down a bit. It's not for everyone. My wife drives a Mini, as you probably know, so it's night and day with handling and suspension. But it's very comfortable for long trips. I mean, really comfortable. While you're in here, you should be checking for your heated seats. If you've got them, cooled seats if you've got them, make sure everything works. These things are expensive to repair if you're thinking about buying one. If you're just wanting to maintain the one you've got and you're kind of between selling and buying a new truck, you need to think about all these expenses for repairs and whether or not it's worth it in the long run, or if it's more economical just to buy a new truck. But that really boils down to how much you love your truck. Personally, I love this truck and I don't see me getting rid of this truck for a long time, unless Ram makes an electric option. Don't think that's going to happen until maybe 2026. That's a long way off, so I'm going to have this truck for a while. So does it make economic sense to buy or maintain a 12-year-old Ram? Well, that depends on two things. A, you're comfortable working on your Ram, or B, you have got a very good friend who doesn't mind working on it for you. Parts for these trucks are not too expensive. I know that Ford parts are way cheaper than Ram parts, but it's not out of the realms of possibility to buy pretty much everything for this truck. So let's go through what I've had to do over the last 5 years. The first big job I had to do was replace my fuel pump. This meant total removal of the fuel tank as the pump lives inside it. A relatively easy job was replacing the rear control arms. Everything is big and chunky on a truck, so bolts tend not to snap. I recently had to replace my parking brake shoes. This job became harder than expected, and I ended up changing the shoes, pads and rotors. The whole job cost around $200. I've also changed the front rotors and pads. This job was way overdue, as I was detecting a warped front disc for over a year. Standard headlights have old-fashioned halogen bulbs. I tried an HID conversion, but it was unreliable, so now I have LED bulbs which are super bright and easy to replace. The starter motor gave up about 2 years ago, a relatively cheap part and easy access from underneath. An optional repair I did was replace the front shocks and springs. The front of the truck was looking a bit nose heavy, and this didn't cost the earth. And then of course we have the engine disaster. A top end rebuild, all because of one small bolt that no longer wanted to do its job. So aside from the fuel pump and the engine, it's been pretty reliable. The engine problem could have been prevented if I had replaced the timing chain, or at least checked the timing chain. The problem was these engines actually had a recall, a factory recall, but only specific VIN numbers, which mine didn't fall under. There's basically a little bolt that holds the timing chain tight, and if that bolt comes out, it all goes to pot and the engine basically gets destroyed because the timing chain snaps and the valves go through the pistons. Luckily, I avoided any piston damage. So overall cost to repair this truck over the last, 7 years of ownership has been between $2,000 and $3,000, which isn't bad considering 1,000 of that was an engine rebuild. So would I recommend buying or keeping a 10-year-old Dodge Ram? Absolutely maybe. You either have to be a competent mechanic or an incompetent mechanic with access to YouTube. So putting things into perspective, this truck in 2010 would have cost about $65,000. We picked it up 2.5 years old for about $24,000. Huge saving, and everything was working when we got it. To get the equivalent new truck would be about $80,000 to $85,000. Yes, you've got all the new gadgets and all the new tech, but if I really want, I can upgrade the interior of that without too much effort. At the moment, I just run my sound system, my GPS, everything off the iPhone. I could even plug in an iPad and pretend it's a Tesla. So that is my 2010 Dodge Ram 1500 Laramie Crew Cab 5.7 Hemi. Bit of a mouthful. Is it perfect? No. It's near perfect. And I fully expect more things to break along the way. But I know from experience it's not that hard to work on. Parts are relatively inexpensive. And I just love it. So if you're in the market for one, really look one over carefully before you commit. And also be prepared either, as I said before, be prepared to work on it or have a very good friend that is prepared to do the work for you. Thanks for watching.